Hey there, it's Leona. Welcome to Zen Mindfulness Shodo. Today, we're gonna practice Shodo meditation while focusing on the Katakana character for A. So, let's begin our beautiful journey together. When you write a character, imagine a square about the size of the character that you are gonna write like this. First, I'm gonna write it. Then I'm gonna explain the points and tips for writing the character beautifully in detail. Now, let me explain the process in detail. The first stroke begins from the center point of the top left square, or from a point slightly to the left of it. To put it extremely, this horizontal line portion is just a slightly upward curved line, and you continue writing to the right, moving upwards until the middle vertical line comes to the center. Then, pause briefly here. And from this point, at about a 45-degree angle, curve downward like this, while gradually thinning the stroke as you scoop towards the lower left. The ending point of this first stroke is slightly to the right of the middle vertical line, and it's positioned a bit higher than the middle horizontal line. Now for the second stroke, it begins from the middle vertical line, slightly higher than the ending point of the first stroke. The starting point should leave a small space, not touching the horizontal part of the first stroke. After pausing lightly at the middle vertical line, as you can see, it's like this. To put it extremely, while curving to the right, but especially in the upper half, it's a line at a quite vertical angle that appears almost parallel to the middle vertical line as you write downwards. Only the lower part is like this, facing the lower left direction, gradually thinning as you scoop down. When you scoop the diagonal part of the first stroke, if it ends too short, like about this much, it might not touch the second stroke when you write it. In that case, it may look like the first stroke is a bit too short compared to the second stroke. For example, like this. If you write it like this, there will be quite a space here, so it will look like the scooped part is a bit short, and it will appear as if the first and second strokes are separated. Rather than looking like two lines composing one character, it will look more like the first stroke is independent and the second stroke is independent, and it loses the sense of unity. So while they don't need to be completely connected, I think it's better not to leave too wide a space between the end point of the first stroke and the second stroke. However, if this diagonal part comes to the left of the middle vertical line, for example, when you scoop the first stroke like this, if the end point of the first stroke comes to the left of the second stroke and crosses over here, it doesn't look very neat. So this diagonal part should be neither too short nor too long. It's best if it lightly touches the second stroke, or ends just slightly to the right of it. This way, the two strokes of these two lines appear unified, looking as if they are composing this single katakana character. Another point to keep in mind is to write this part in a way that makes it look wider. For example, I'm gonna write an example here. I'm writing this example in an exaggerated way to make it easier to understand. But if you scoop it straight like this, the space between this horizontal line part and the diagonal part, this space here, in this case, there's almost none. Some people might prefer this character written in this narrow style over the other shape. If you like it, you can write it this way. However, if you're like me, and want to make this part look a bit wider and more spacious. As I mentioned earlier, you can write the horizontal line part with a slight upward curve, and write the diagonal part at about a 45-degree angle, while curving downward and gradually thinning. This results in a character with a cleaner impression, like this. For the length of the second stroke, if you can scoop this second stroke to a height where the space below this ending point and the space above the topmost point, that is, above the turning point of the first stroke, appear to be about the same size, then the character will be positioned at the center of this square box. This creates a well-balanced and visually pleasing appearance. When practicing in a square box like this, for example, if I write an example here, it would be like this. When the first stroke is like this, the second stroke could be like this. Or when the first stroke is like this, the second stroke could be like this. These are examples, so I'm writing them in an exaggerated way to make them easier to understand. In this way, in the example on the left, the second stroke ends about here, so it's quite short. The second stroke looks short compared to the first stroke. Due to the shortness of the second stroke, especially when writing horizontally, it will look like the character is shifted upwards and doesn't appear to be written in the middle. If you scoop it like this, the ending point comes down to about here. So the space above and below the character within the square box is uneven, with the lower part being narrower compared to the upper part. This in turn makes the second stroke look too long compared to the first stroke. Therefore, if you practice writing in a square box like this, it becomes easier to know what length provides the best overall balance. The last point is the angle of the second stroke. For example, if I write an example here, when the first stroke is like this, if you scoop the second stroke like this, then from the starting point to the ending point it's like this. When written this way, the entire character appears to be tilted to the right, and it doesn't look like the character is standing straight like this. So, I think it would be good to pay attention to the angle of the second stroke as well. Why don't you try practicing while keeping these points and tips in mind? The key points and tips for writing katakana neatly, as explained in the video, are concisely summarized in this book. Each character can be practiced over 3 pages. If you're interested, please see the description. I'm gonna practice 1 page of this workbook this time, but you're welcome to practice as much as you want. If you're practicing with a pen, I recommend that you place a few pieces of paper under the page that you're writing on, so that the ink doesn't bleed onto the page under it. Alright, let's get started.
Before you start writing, take a deep breath and clear your mind. Slowly breathe in as much air as you can through your nose and exhale all the negative emotions that you've been holding until this moment through your month. When you are mentally ready to write, you can start writing. Check the starting point, turning point, end point, the angle of the stroke, the direction of the curve. After that, without hesitation, aim for the end point and move the pen smoothly. Try to write much slower than you normally write, putting your heart and soul into each stroke. However, if you move the pen too slowly, the lines will become shaky, and if you move the pen too quickly, the lines will become thinner in areas you don't want them to be thinner. So concentrate on finding the right speed. Once you've finished writing the character, look at the character as a whole and think about what changes you should make next in order to make it look even more beautiful. Of course, you don't have to take all the tips and points that I've told you and copy my way of writing the character. Trust your own sense of beauty and adjust accordingly. It's important that you are satisfied with the shapes of the characters you write. So please use my tips and points as ideas and hints for adjusting the shape of the character to your sense of beauty. Of course, you can't change the shape so much that it no longer looks like a character. If you notice that you are thinking about something else while writing, immediately refocus on what you are writing. By repeating this exercise, you will be able to notice when your attention starts to turn to something unrelated to your current action and gradually improve your concentration and self-control. You can also build your patience with this practice. So, let's practice together. It's just natural that we are unable to create perfectly satisfying strokes every time. Instead of blaming yourself for not being able to make strokes that you want, try praising yourself for taking on difficult challenges. All right, let's learn and practice together again in my next video. Thank you for watching.